large liberal city. We're the 33rd largest city in the country, and it's like a lot of other big cities. I mean, we lean to the left. We're a liberal city. We have more money than we've ever had before. When I was on the city council earlier, we did $600 million budgets. We have a $1.2 billion budget right now. More money than we've ever had before, more taxes than you've ever had before, and yet crime is higher than ever. You know, we've got some signs of some of it, you know, just different pockets that have gone down some, but crime is higher than ever. I'm looking after 8 years of this mayor, 9 years of this current administration. Yeah. They have more money. I mean, the council passes every bit of dollar they want, you know. They want to raise taxes, the council passes everything. Crime's still higher than ever. Homelessness is worse than ever before. Our economy is at best stagnant when you compare it to Colorado Springs, Phoenix, other surrounding cities that are like us. Our economy is stagnant. So we have serious problems, and we've got an administration that's done nothing. And this is a strong mayor city.
Yeah, it is.
And so
a lot of power.
Yeah,
that
when you have a
power.
strong mayor, you can make some changes. But when you have a weak mayor, and when you have a mayor that talks out of both sides of his mouth, just wants to exist. Right now, he's in preservation mode and apparently running for re-election, and yet has absolutely nothing to show for the last 8 years.
And when you talk about strong mayor, what you're talking about there is the power that the mayor actually has is enough to really affect change if you have a mayor who, A, wants to make the right change, and a mayor who, B, has the guts to do it.
The mayor can make those changes, and if he has the guts to do it, we could essentially end homelessness in the city.
Absolutely.
If the mayor decided to do it. It's amazing how much money we spend on. If someone's homeless in the city and they don't want to be, they don't have to be.
Right.
You know, so it's having the right, executing the right programs to get them off the streets. We could reduce crime in this city if this mayor wanted to really get serious about doing it. I'd love to be able to say I have more power as a city councilor, but we don't.
Right.
I mean, we have the ability to be able to affect policy. We have the ability we approve a budget every year. We give them a ton of money.
Right.
But this mayor has the ability to be able to make those changes.
What do you think we're missing when it comes to this mayor? Like, what's the disconnect? You guys voted in, he gets the budget to fight crime, to lower some of our homelessness issues. Where does it stop? Like, what happens?
Well, I'll just talk about the area of our police department. I mean, we're under a DOJ investigation. We're getting to the end of that. Those are reforms that should have been done. I think we're done like the first few years of it. But we have, we have the same amount of police officers on the streets or less than we did 7 years ago. And yet this is a mayor who promised 400 more police officers, I think 1,200. And yet we have fewer than we did 7 years ago. They're handcuffed because of this, DOJ investigation. We're a more dangerous city because of the DOJ reforms that are in place. We have a swelled, amazing how much staff that this administration has right now. They have all the resources in the world to be able to make these kind of changes, and they just don't. So it's about leadership and leadership on the top.
Well, and I do get the feeling that there is a real understanding now, I think, from a variety of corners of this city that we have a problem in the mayor's office. And I do think he's very vulnerable. There's no doubt about that. But you mentioned the police. How in the world can you hire 400 new police officers when you make policing impossible? They've done this. They've sabotaged themselves. And then they say, well, we tried. Right. But yet they've created an environment where keeping the people of this city safe is actually impossible with the way they're governing it.
Yeah, I think we spent $40 or $50 million on a monitor on this whole DOJ, the CASA agreement. And again, we have nothing to show for it. We have about 850 sworn officers right now, less than we had before. Right now, at any given time, I think 400 officers that are actually patrol officers or doing some kind of investigative work. On any given time in the city of Albuquerque, about 50 to 75 marked vehicles in this city. And it's just unbelievable. You cannot,
I can't do it.
We can't do community policing like that. These are all promises that this mayor said he's going to do and hasn't done it.
When you look at, by the way, Ava, if you want to do a quick Google search, we'll do this just off the cuff, just to explain what the DOJ consent decree, how damaging it is. The minute the DOJ comes into your community, what you see is a spike in crime. It happens all the time. And we've had the DOJ here for going on 10 years now. In the longest consent decree that I think anybody imagined here, right? So these guys come in, they look over the shoulder of our police officers, they drown them in paperwork, they don't allow them to do their job. There are some meaningful changes that could happen, and maybe could have happened a decade ago. Yeah. But since then, it's gone way over the top here. It's been a money-making operation, and then beyond that, It's actually spiked crime because it handcuffs police
I
officers.
mean, other cities that are under these same kind of agreements, Chicago. I mean,
There you go.
crime is terrible. New Orleans, Seattle. And you know what's interesting? These the U.S. representatives from these states, they see the problems with these decrees and how much money we're spending on them. How the results are just they're nowhere near what they need to be. And so you had these U.S. representatives, senators that wrote letters to Merrick Garland saying you got to make some reforms. Merrick Garland says you're right. We've got to make some reforms. We're going to limit the amount of time of these decrees. Right now, it's unending. Right. And so these are liberal states. I mean, Democrat senators, and so I mean, these are people that are seeing that they're making no change. It's not getting any better because of it. And even this administration in Washington sees it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So, do you think you could see change? Do you think we could start to see change here? People realizing, this just isn't working.
I mean, it's going to take people that are, elected officials that are serious about being a sanctuary for law-abiding citizens. Right. About getting serious about crime, serious about homelessness, and actually enforcing laws that we have. This is an administration that doesn't want to enforce any laws. This is an administration that will allow people to protest on Gibson and let them stay there all day, blocking traffic and coddle these people rather than just simply enforce. I mean, we enforce decorum, laws in our city council chambers more than we do on the streets of Albuquerque.
It's crazy.
Well, I mean, and you have things like so our mayor took away the park that was allowing a safe area apparently for homelessness, and the whole plan put in front of council, I believe, was, hey, now we're going to put these in different districts. We're gonna have these encampments in all the districts, is what I first heard. I don't know if that's even true. Do you have any update on where that stands and where we're looking at?
Well, I think it's a shell game in so many ways. The council, I think, took care of that as far as, and it was very clear the city didn't want these homeless encampments all over the city in ways that, chain link fence with tents everywhere next to their neighborhoods. And this would have happened. I mean, make no mistake that if those laws would have passed, we'd be seeing those. But now it's mostly in the courts, and there's some decisions against us and for us in those ways. And so, and there are some of these encampments that have been they've tried it, and for whatever reason they've been fought. And so, I think it's really at a standstill right now.
Okay.
So, quick thing on that. Let's just get through the homeless thing first, and then we'll talk to you about what's in front of the council right now. But as far as homelessness goes, you're on the council. You see this all the time. Tell me a little bit about a few things you think we could do as a city to truly help the situation and to put ourselves in a position to be able to deal with this. Because I think everybody now sees it doesn't matter where you are in Albuquerque. Sure. There are people on every street corner. And so what do we do to start to provide treatment or an option or create an environment which is welcoming for people who want help? But if you don't want help, allowing you to sleep on the streets of Albuquerque, how is that a viable solution?
Last time we checked, we had 460 available beds every night in Albuquerque. Beds that are not being used. Westside Shelter, there's about 10 other organizations that we worked with. If someone wants a bed tonight in the city of Albuquerque, they have one. It's guaranteed. If a teenager's living on the streets and wants to get off the streets, we have enough resources to get them off the streets right now and today. And when we hear about them, we do that. We could. It's just a matter of enforcing that. It's just a matter of actually, developing the kind of department that's gonna be able to to do that and take care of it. So the excuses are we don't have enough beds. The excuses are we cannot enforce it because we don't have enough beds. And so Ninth Circuit Court sued somebody and said, no, you guys can't do this. And it's really, and other cities are doing it. Other cities are enforcing these things. But this administration uses those excuses to be able to coddle to that side, which is just absolutely outrageous. And
isn't it though? Because when you see like the ACLU, to me, it's just an absolute, they're agents of chaos. They want chaos. And how is it that a group like the ACLU who says, we want to leave people on the streets to continue to be addicted, and that ends one way, they end up dying.
Yep.
When the reality is the compassionate approach is you offer them help. And if they won't take help, you don't let them sleep on the streets.
Right.
How has this been reversed?
And we do bill after bill. We put so much money into treatment centers. The council just continually pours money into the county. You put the money that we have with the county together and talk about treatment and mental health, available beds. All of it's there. There's no reason anybody would have to live on the streets or walk the streets of Albuquerque at night if they don't want to.
Right.
And so you have a large group of people. We talk to our AFR and they'll say that 3 out of every 4 people, the down and outs that they talk to, and they take them to the West Side shelter, they'll tell them that they were made homeless in another city, another state, and they were told that Albuquerque would leave them alone.
Yeah.
And so that's really what you see right now. What you're seeing in Albuquerque is people that they just want to live on the streets, and they're just going to want to do whatever,
Well,
whatever they want.
and I'll say this: we've always had some homelessness. There's always been some level of homelessness. So even under the former Mayor Barry, right, we had a homeless issue. But I remember when Barry was in office, there was all these signs at like major stopping points where they knew there were going to be homeless people begging and asking for money or whatever they needed. And there were signs that said, don't give this to somebody that's begging for you. Instead, call this number and we will get this person the help that they need.
Yep.
I don't see those signs anymore.
We just put that program back. I mean, the council just voted a few weeks ago to put that program back in place. But it's interesting. Why did the administration come up with that?
But why was it ever removed?
There you go.
That's really the question for me is it feels like a bottleneck. You can throw money at it, but if it's not enforced, it's just wasted tax dollars that isn't going to anything. It's kind of how it feels, at least from my perspective, who I drive down the streets and they're expanding. The amount of begging and the amount of homelessness that is coming into all of the neighborhoods now is rapid.
An extreme progressive, mindset is permeated every part of City Hall. It used to be that even big liberal cities, there were fiscal hawks. I mean, even big liberal cities were still careful what they did with your money.
Yeah.
That's gone at City Hall right now. So it's amazing. But really, it's affected in every way by a real progressive. What we see nationally has really, really affected Albuquerque in every possible way.
Okay, so let's talk about the council for a second, because I do think it's an interesting council, because we do talk about how in many ways this is a much more left-leaning city than many of us, especially in our younger years, remember. However, the council itself is an interesting mix. You have a fairly closely divided mix as a general rule versus, say, the legislature. You look at the New Mexico legislature and you go, whoa, that thing is almost a supermajority. Yeah. It's really far left. And that is not necessarily the case with the council. So for people that are not familiar with the Albuquerque City Council, where do you see it as far as an ideological bent goes? I still think it's left, but it isn't as far left as some other areas of the state or some other bodies in the state.
No, and I think it's a small bastion of hope there because and it just happens to be at the environment right now. We have a makeup on this council that for the most part does the job of checks and balances in our city right now. So we have you can call it we're nonpartisan, but if you want to call it a 5-4, 5 Democrats, 4 Republicans, but we have some moderate Democrats on that council that are, I would call them fiscal conservative. I would call them some common sense, and fortunately, I think they take their job seriously of, hey, we're here for the kind of checks and balances and common sense kind of policies and decisions that the people in this city called us to make. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to be like that for very long, to be honest.
Well, and let's